Hello, my name is Cora Potts, and I'm from Warren in the Mad River Valley. I'm here with my peers from the Vermont Youth Lobby, and we are here today with a message being spread nationwide that it is time to make polluters pay for the damage they have caused the beautiful earth we call home. Youth Lobby is an organization that has helped young Vermonters speak with a collective voice and have an impact on issues we care about for over a decade. In 2024, before the passing of the Climate Superfund Act, students participated in advocacy trainings and missed 2 days of school to show up at the State House for a lobby day like we are doing here today. As a freshman in high school, I was introduced to the Youth Lobby and visited the State House for the first time, where I learned about the Climate Superfund when we sat on the Senate chambers for the second reading of the bill. This experience drove my passion for climate advocacy. Finally, the people that were causing damage to the state I love were being held accountable, and Vermonters would reap the rewards of the work put into climate action. Being able to share our voices in this way is vital to the protection of our future. We are not able to vote, we can't run for office ourselves, and there are no lobbying groups dedicated to uplifting our voices, except for this one, Youth Lobby. Although you might think we couldn't care less about politics, this is far from the truth. When the federal government is running further and further out of our grasp, it is the local and state governments that give us hope. I want to thank all of our lawmakers who have worked so hard to pass the climate laws we currently have and are fighting to protect them now. We are especially grateful to Treasurer Mike Pieciak for joining us today to talk about all the work he is doing for Vermont's Climate Superfund Act, as well as everything he is doing for our state. With this, I also want to send a message to many legislators today. As a Youth Lobby member said in 2024 while advocating for the Climate Superfund Act, we notice adults being motivated to move and support us, but beyond saying, thank you for fighting this fight, thank you for being here, thank you for coming to this meeting, there's nothing there. Praise is not why we're here. We're demanding that the fight for protecting our state needs to continue, and we are grateful for all the legislators that see this and help us continue to fight in these tough times. We know that the work is not over. It is our future on the line, and we will not be left with the consequences of the decisions that are made in this building. Please continue to fight for the successful implementation of the Vermont Climate Superfund Act and all of Vermont's climate laws. Thank you. We will now be hearing from a Youth Lobby member named Astrid.
Hi everybody, my name is Astrid Longstreth. I live in West Bolton and attend Mount Mansfield Union High School as a sophomore. One of the topics that the Youth Lobby has been focusing on recently is the Climate Superfund Act, as it faces lawsuits and pushback from the federal government and big oil corporations. That is why we are participating in the national Make Polluters Pay week of action, to make sure our state leaders know how important this law is to our future, Vermont's future, and to stand in solidarity with states across the country who are following in our footsteps by advancing climate superfund bills of their own and working to hold big oil companies accountable for their damaging actions. I want to thank state lawmakers and leaders for not backing down to the federal government and fossil fuel corporations. I want to thank Attorney General Charity Clark for her work to hold fossil fuel companies accountable. And we are extra grateful to Treasurer Pieciak for being here today, as well as for his advocacy and work on this very important law. As youth in Vermont, the continued implementation of the Climate Superfund Act represents a step forward for protecting the future of the planet and the next generation. We will be the ones inheriting an Earth with a warming climate, with polluted air, with rising sea levels, but we should not have to be the ones to bear the responsibility for it. That is why the Climate Superfund Act is so important. It makes those who are truly at fault for the continued impacts of climate change be part of the solution. It seeks reparations for Vermonters who have already suffered so much at the hands of climate change. With the funds generated from compensation from fossil fuel companies, Vermont can better prepare for future impacts of climate change by investing in infrastructure and efforts that will increase our climate resilience. At a time when federal action is moving against, rather than for, climate advocacy, activism is more essential than ever. This is not a time to be idle, to wait for things to improve, because they won't, unless we do something. The future is not just something that is going to happen. It is something that we can shape and take action to protect, while there is still time to do so. This must happen not just for Vermont, not just for youth, not just for people, but for the Earth itself. Taking steps forward to stop climate change will benefit everyone who calls this planet our home. Thank you.
We will now be hearing from Treasurer Mike Pichek.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see all of these young, engaged leaders here in Montpelier. It is really, really important that we hear from you and hear your voices and that you show up, because lawmakers need to be held accountable, because on the issue of climate, you all have so much more at stake than anybody else that's working in this building. As young people, your entire future is going to be determined on the choices that we make here in Vermont and the choices that we make around the country and the policies that we implement right now as to what your lives are going to be and the lives of your children. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you also for the role that you played in helping get the Climate Superfund bill passed. Our office was excited to support this legislation. It's excited to work to implement this bold solution as well. I think as almost anybody that's in this room learned when they were in kindergarten, when you make the mess, you are the one that's responsible for cleaning it up. And that is the Climate Superfund bill at its core. And here in Vermont, it's really critical because our communities are being impacted more so than almost anywhere else in the country. You think about Vermont as a climate haven, and I think in some ways we certainly are. But when you think about the number of natural disasters that have occurred in the last 15 years, Vermont is in the top 5 in terms of the number of major disaster declarations that have been declared. We're in the top 5 in terms of the per capita amount of money that has come into our state from the federal government to help us rebuild after being devastated by flooding, now 3 years in a row. So we need to get ahead of this. We need to be investing in resiliency. We need to be investing in infrastructure. And then the simple question, again, comes down to who is going to pay for those critical investments that we need to make? Vermont taxpayers or the folks that are responsible for causing it in the first instance? So this issue is critical, but so are all of the issues that you all are advocating and working on relating to climate. When I think about our state, I think we have some really important advantages here in Vermont. We're a state that has a great sense of community and a deep sense of community that's really valued. But we're also a state that has beautiful natural beauty. And we're a state that has a lot of outdoor recreation and access to outdoor recreation. Those are our advantages. If the climate continues to change in the ways that it are, and it is, those advantages are at risk. Our natural beauty is at risk. Our access to outdoor recreation is at risk. So it's an economic issue as much as it is a moral issue. And I really appreciate you being here, lending your voices. Anything I can do, anything our Treasurer's Office can do to support your work, please be in touch. Thank you.
We will now be hearing from another youth lobby member named Danny.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Brown, I live in Mendon, but I did not start here. I grew up in New Jersey, spending years on highways built for speed, consumption, and extraction. Even before I had the language for it, I learned something simple. You can read an economy in the land it leaves behind. Later in life took me to Vermont, and the contrast was immediate. Here the land is quieter and more deliberate. Rivers run clear. Winters still reset the landscape. Climate stewardship is not a slogan here. It is a responsibility and a legacy. A legacy of being the first state to pass an official Climate Superfund style law, requiring polluters to be held accountable instead of running free for decades of harm. Vermont has also turned out names with international impact, with the likes of Bill McKibben, who has not only been an early and vocal champion for climate action, but Bernie Sanders, who inspired a political movement that has been at the forefront of climate action for years. This is what Vermont's legacy means for me. Not loud, but early and consistent. The legacy is tested when disaster strikes. In Lyndonville, flooding overwhelmed homes, roads, and small businesses. Families were displaced, municipal budgets were stretched. Repairing infrastructure never designed for this scale of rainfall. Farmers lost fields. Rural communities were left carrying out the costs they did not create and cannot absorb alone. This is why we need to continue with the Climate Superfund Act. The act asks the largest contributors to climate damage to help pay for real physical harm already being felt in places like Lyndonville. This is not a radical policy, it is accountable stewardship. Now is not the time to halt the progress our state has made. This progress means a state that is not apathetic about the issue, and we value the future of not only our state, but nation as well. Weakening or delaying the climate commitments risks more than policy failure. It risks draining state, community, and household budgets and putting young people like me on the hook to pay for climate disasters. It also risks Vermont's credibility and its long-standing promise to lead with responsibility. That promise still matters, and it is worth defending. I thank you for your time.
We will now hear from Quincy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Quincy Sabick, and I'm a senior at Virgins Union High School. I'm also a lifelong resident of the city of Virgins. I'm also the youth representative on the Vermont Climate Council, though today I speak as a member of the youth lobby. My passion for combating climate change began the same way as many of the youth here today. Over the past 18 years living in Vermont, I've watched as temperatures have risen, ecosystems have been destroyed, and countless families have been left devastated by severe flooding. Vermont's leading climate experts see this too, which is why in 2020, the state legislature passed the Global Warming Solutions Act, which created the Vermont Climate Council. This council is composed of professionals from a variety of fields and industries, each bringing their own knowledge and experience to the council's task of creating a climate action plan. The plan, which was most recently updated this past summer, sets requirements for reducing Vermont's carbon emissions by certain benchmarks. Since the beginning of the council, youth have served on subcommittees with one representative on the full council. The council and those of us here today understand that youth play an integral role in ensuring that Vermont's future is sustainable and affordable, not just today, but tomorrow and for decades to come. 50 years from now, it'll be us and our children who will face the consequences of delaying action today. That's why groundbreaking initiatives like the Climate Superfund are absolutely necessary. Polluters must be held accountable for the sake of not only today's Vermonters, but also the future generations who deserve to enjoy the beautiful state we call home. Attempts to stall and even shut down this work have happened before. A year ago, I stood here asking legislators not to repeal the Global Warming Solutions Act, and now, in a time where pressure from federal government to halt climate initiatives is at an all-time high, it's more important than ever to remember who these decisions will affect the most. We know that affordability is at the top of everyone's minds this legislative session. Many legislators and officials who will benefit from big oil will tell you that climate action is unaffordable and frivolous, but we're already seeing the high cost of inaction. The federal administration refuses to recognize Vermont's recent disasters as deserving of assistance, which puts the costs back onto the communities that have already suffered. That's why the Climate Superfund is especially important. It holds these polluters accountable for their damage and not just the taxpayers. This money can in turn go toward helping Vermont achieve its climate goals outlined by the Climate Council and the Climate Action Plan, including building resilience against natural disasters like flooding. By supporting the Superfund, we are supporting a sustainable future for Vermont that prioritizes cost savings while preserving the national environment that sets Vermont apart. Climate action isn't just about today or next year, it's about the long-term good for our communities. Thank you very much.
Finally, we will be hearing from Lila.
Hello, my name is Lila. I am from Eastover, Vermont, and I am scared for my future. It is absurd that I'm standing here instead of being in school, but it has been left to my generation to fight for our own survival. So here I am. First, I would like to acknowledge all the work Vermont has already done. Vermont was the first state to implement the Climate Superfund Act and continues to be a pioneer in climate legislation. But we still have a long way to go in reducing our emissions and increasing our resilience. The facts are undeniable. Between 2011 and 2024, Vermont experienced 25 federally declared climate-related disasters and had the fourth highest per capita disaster costs of any state. Across Vermont, our communities have endured devastating floods, droughts, and record temperatures. The science has been crystal clear for over a century, and yet we are still moving backwards when we should be racing forward. The window is closing. The choices being made now will determine whether or not my generation will have a livable future in Vermont. And let me be clear, this is not about politics. Vermont's climate and ecosystems do not care about debates or empty promises. The cost of inaction is far higher than the cost of change. Annual billion-dollar floods and disasters will increasingly dwarf the cost of doing what you know we must do. Given the current federal administration, it is more important than ever that Vermont holds the line on our climate laws and protects the progress we have already achieved. A successful implementation of the Superfund makes that hope a reality. Vermont's legislature must remain committed to the Global Warming Solutions Act and continue to build our state's foundational climate laws. As our representatives, it is your responsibility to secure our future. We are still children, and we won't be able to undo the damage you are allowing to happen today. So please, I am urging you, treat this crisis with the imperativeness it demands and give us a future. We will not stand and watch the world burn without speaking up. And people are waking up. Change is on its way. Our lives are in your hands, and we will be watching to see what you do with them. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. Does anyone have any questions for Youth Lobby or for Treasurer Mike Tichek? Then we're good. Thank you so much.